Hi, my name is Colman Noctor, and I work as a child psychotherapist, and I've done so for many years. In terms of sleep is a common problem that parents describe all the time, and it becomes really important that we focus and put a value on sleep. Sleep is the bedrock of what is to follow in the rest of the day. It offers us enough rest to kind of manage our mood, to manage our activity, to manage our behaviors, to manage our reactions. And so from the idea that getting a good night's sleep is a really important start of the day. And we need a consistent routine around sleep, that going to bed, the bedtime routine, is something that is reliable and predictable. And that with that foundation, children can manage the challenges of the following day with a good rest and a good starting point. Sleep routine is really important from the point of view of its impact on our functioning in terms of our concentration, in terms of our focus, in terms of our ability to kind of regulate. And regulation is the key task of childhood. We're trying to regulate children all the time in terms of regulating their desire, regulating their appetite, regulating their intake. And we try and kind of, I suppose, encourage them to become more regulated. And so when your child is throwing a tantrum at 3 years of age because they're not getting buttons in the shop, you're hoping by the time they're 20, they're not doing that anymore because they have learned to regulate emotion. And sleep is a really cornerstone of the regulation process. If you can regulate sleep, and obviously when we're in a time of where structure's gone out the window, and in terms of our COVID-19 reality is that bedtimes are now struggling, we are struggling with screen time, we're struggling with limiting our appetites and our activity levels, etc. And so the importance of returning to a good sleep pattern is really important because it'll create the foundation for the well-being of the child in terms of how they can manage to take on challenges, how they'll manage frustration, and obviously in terms of reducing their stress. The idea that our stress hormones at night are given a chance to recharge, and maybe that's a metaphor that we need to think about. Our sleeping is much like we charge up our devices or charge up. It's an opportunity for us to replenish, to kind of settle down, to have some downtime and be ready for the following day. And then if we're trying to manage on half a charge, we're not going to function in the same way as we would if we were on a full charge. So the idea is that without the sleep, the other interventions become futile because it's like building a house without the foundations. That foundational sleep pattern creates the basis for everything that is to follow. I think it's important for us to know that we kind of function off rhythm and we function off routine, and each rhythm and routine affects the other. There's knock-on effects. So if your sleep pattern is poor, it can oftentimes increase the chances of your appetite or your meals being poor, which oftentimes, if you're tired or not getting enough sleep, your motivation for energy or for activity becomes less. And so each of these functional systems of activity, diet, and sleep are crucially important to how we feel. They're the basis for our well-being in terms of we are biological beings, so we need to feel rested, we need to feel active, and we need to feel fed and nourished. And without those things, the sleep is the baseline for that because it's the first part of the day. It begins after a night's sleep. So if that's wrong, or if we've ever kind of slept in or overslept or not slept, we know the impact of that. And we see that with children all the time. Many of children's behavior, when it gets into tantrums or if it gets into kind of difficult behaviors, we'll explain that by saying they're tired. And from the point of view that insight needs to be used when we're considering how important it is to get a night's sleep. And oftentimes the struggles that we're dealing with during the day are maybe a result of a late bedtime the night before and maybe not what's going on in the moment.